fact, I would often say we would not all be on this call talking tonight if I had not cheated some 38 years ago, because that's what got me into recovery and got me to looking at myself and looking at my shadow, and before I even knew what that was, and writing a book about what I learned, and that's why we're all here. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things that sometimes I think I wish I could do that over, and it's one of those things that I don't know that it could have been done any other way. Just to start this thing off, I'll just put it out there. I have cheated. I have been cheated on. Been on both sides of it. In fact, I would often say we would not all be on this call talking tonight if I had not cheated some 38 years ago, because that's what got me into recovery and got me to looking at myself and looking at my shadow, and before I even knew what that was, and writing a book about what I learned, and that's why we're all here. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things that sometimes I think I wish I could do that over, and it's one of those things that I don't know that it could have been done any other way to get me where I am. So, how'd you
Yeah.
get involved being interested in betrayal?
How did I get here, huh?
How'd you
First,
get here?
well, before I say that, I just like I want to thank you for having me. And I love how you set the intention for this. I think men's work is really important in brotherhood and finding spirit and looking at shadows. So I already love the vibe. Like this is great. So thanks.
Good. Good. I'm glad we're making you feel home. And I
Yeah.
forgot to even read my introduction for you. So you tell us first why we're interviewing you and how you
Why
got
are you?
involved in looking at men's being getting
Sure.
betrayed, and then I'll
Sure.
introduce you more formally.
I'll wing it. Yeah, so I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm also what's called a CSAT, which is a certified sex addiction therapist. Um, and right, I wrote a book. I have a copy of it.
Hold it up.
Everyone's
Hold it up.
there. There's
There we
my
go.
book, A Man's Guide to Partner Betrayal. It's actually the first book written by a man for men on the topic of what I've coined as masculine betrayal trauma, to helping men navigate when they've been cheated on. And the book came out in the book came out in January. And
Congratulations.
what I've thank you. What I've been learning on this journey and just getting deeper in the therapy world, it's kind of like been an ignored topic in the psychology world, sadly. It just hasn't been touched. It's always been deferred that the man's the one that does the cheating. Men don't get cheated on. So that's one reason why I'm here. And kind of like you, your story, my ex-wife cheated on me, and she had an affair with her business partner. She actually had multiple emotional affairs, and yeah, it broke me. It in many ways it killed off many parts of myself. And I was asked once, would I do it again, or would I change anything? And I thought about it, and the truth is I wouldn't. Like I find that journey and that pain really has made me a better man. And I get to do this work now that I'm so passionate about. And I'm kind
Mm.
of on a mission to be that voice for every man out there that's been cheated on and can never put words to it, or just got so stuck in the shame. So that's kind of
Yeah.
why I'm here.
You and I, we may get to do a therapy session together on this call.
Let's do it.
We're working through, some of the pain that we went through to get where we are in terms of having been cheated on or betrayal. Well, let me
Yeah.
ask you a question. I don't know if it's that deep of a question. Why'd you pick the term partner betrayal, like in the title of the book? Is that actually a technical term, or why didn't you just say a
Um,
man's guide to recovering from infidelity or getting cheated on, or
You know, I wish I don't have a specific answer for that question, and I've never been asked that question. I can
all
tell you
right,
this.
I've already dug deeper than anybody
We
else.
need a scorecard, a scoreboard, or something like.
Oh, I keep score, believe me.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, we'll even up at the end. We'll see where we're at. I'll tell you the biggest struggle I had, like just describing this. we'll call it issue thing was like, how do I, like, if I talk about infidelity or cheating, like how do people know? Like my original title was called No Man's Land, which kind of fits because I think that's where men, when we're cheated on, we kind of
Yeah,
go to this no man's land place.
sure.
And then I had people and my publisher, they're like, man, you it just needs to say what it is, right? And I just felt like partner betrayal kind of just that's what it is, right? And so and it's the guy, it's a man's guide to it. But I struggle with it. Like one of my taglines now, and I have my own little podcast I'm doing is as I say, men get cheated on too. Because
Two,
it
T double
well,
O. Yeah,
TOO, right?
yeah.
Because it happens, right? I want to kind of just be that blunt about it.
All right.
Yeah.
So the very first question I have in my notes is almost kind of like a pickup question.
Okay.
Who cheats more, men or women?
You know, statistically, we believe in the psychology world and everything you look at is that men cheat more. However, the more there's been more research done. I know a couple guys that are doing a lot on it now. And the things you read, and as women through the years have become more independent, more wealthy, owning companies, more freedom, I'm kind of seeing it in the things I'm hearing. It's pretty even now, for sure.
Yeah. And I even wondered, I was thinking about this in the shower before the call earlier, that I'm going to guess, I'm guessing in terms of statistics for betrayal, we kind of have to go on self-report, right?
Yeah.
There's no way of just, having a completely accurate, tracking of this. So where do the reports come from? Well, they might come from divorce filings. They might come this way, that way. It might come from studies, or
Yeah.
questionnaires
Yeah. Independent things. Yeah.
and and I'm wondering, just like men report domestic violence much less than women do, I'm wondering if men report getting cheated on much
They
less
don't.
than
That,
women do.
well, yeah, and that's the problem, is it's so underreported. Men don't go about talking about it. And just to give you an example, like one of my oldest best friends and my brother did not find out about my betrayal from my ex-wife until about 8 years later.
Yeah,
And the divorce, and they were just dumbfounded
yeah.
because
And
I
who's
just had,
who's that on, right? Who's that on, right? You didn't tell them, right?
yeah, I didn't feel safe for me, and my own shame, my own masculinity, all those kind of things, and I didn't want to be judged. Also, I'll be honest, I kind of was protecting her. I didn't want them to judge her,
Yeah.
right? She's also the mom of my child, my son, right? So it's super sticky, super messy for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and all those things. I know what you're talking about. Mostly, I got a bunch of questions I want to ask you, but I've got a couple maybe snarkier things in here as well because I have
Okay.
a tendency to be snarky. One of them was in asking about who cheats more, men or women, and could it be that men underreport? Could it also be that women are sneakier than men? Women are just better at hiding that stuff than we get. We
I mean,
guys are
because
clumsy. We get found out the first try, right?
I mean, I'll tell you, yeah, my CSAT work, because I work with a lot of men around sex addiction too. And I work both sides of the fence because I also work with men who cheat, and just men do sometimes some stupid shit. They just don't cover their tracks, or they get caught in their own lies. So I see that a lot. So that could be
So,
part of it. You
it
might be
could,
onto something, another survey
yeah,
for
are
sure.
women just sneakier than men? Okay, so here's the other snarky thing. I'll get all the snarky out of the way.
You're
Okay,
good.
here's a pattern as a marriage therapist and as somebody who's been cheated on, all right? And somebody that I actually used to work quite a bit with infidelity as well, because after I started my own personal recovery of my own infidelity, I started putting remember yellow pages? I put yellow pages ads,
Yes,
you know,
of course.
recover from betrayal, sexual infidelity. And the pattern that I've seen over the years, again, this is a little bit snarky, is that when women cheat and get caught, they tend to blame their partner. It was your fault. You weren't loving, you didn't listen, you weren't available. And the man has to grovel to win her back. The man cheats, it's all his fault, and the man has to grovel to get the woman back. And again, I'm being a little bit snarky, but if you notice that pattern that culturally
I mean,
between the genders, we handle infidelity kind of different in terms of what people think about cheaters. Well, it's men that cheat. Well, who's cheating with them? I assume it's got to be women, right? And
sure.
if a woman gets cheated on, don't we all come to her? Oh, that poor woman. He was such a scumball. Man gets cheated on. It's like, what's your problem? Couldn't you keep her happy? It's like I really do believe there are probably very strong societal biases about this
Big
topic.
time. Yeah, there's big, like I'll call them unhealthy social norms, if you will, and bias. And I'll just say what's interesting is I'm remarried, and my wife actually, you're gonna love this. I didn't tell you this, but she's a what's called a betrayal trauma coach. She's got a bunch of different certifications, and she works with the women betrayers. So she actually, and so we piggyback, right? And we
Mhm.
and
I'm, I'm,
one of
I'm
the
I'm sure your dinner discussions are always entertaining and interesting.
yeah, all my friends
You
are
would
always like,
not believe
tell
what
me
I,
a story.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to always tell you a story, right? And there's confidentiality, but yeah, I hear some crazy stuff. But one of the things I get, we do talk about, my wife and I, about these things, and one of the things is the man, like I was saying, the shame for the man is maybe I'm not man enough, right, or whatever those norms are. For the woman, the shame is, I'm dirty, I'm the S word or the B word, or right, because women don't do that. But there's also a norm, well, men do, but it's not really true. Both do, and both often do it for, I think, similar reasons.
I was going to ask you that. Where do you see the overlap in terms of why do men cheat? Why do women cheat? I know that I just know enough to know it's not one thing, that it's not just because men have a strong sex drive, or it's not
Yeah,
just, I mean, when I was unfaithful, it had almost nothing to do with sex. Sex got involved, but it was more just like I'm a validation addict.
yeah, it was the
Somebody
ego.
liked me enough and was treating me well and wanted to get naked with me. Well, okay, I guess I could get naked with it. I would just
Got
dig
to
it
do
on the
it.
fact that somebody liked me.
Yeah, I think, for the men that I work with that are the cheaters, often what I see is it's an ego, stroking the ego. It's a power play. It's because I can kind of idea.
Hmm.
The women usually, what my wife and I talk about, what she gathers is often it's they feel lost, they feel unseen, unloved,
Yeah,
unsupported, right?
yeah.
Like we're right, because often, men, we can get stuck, we can get busy being the provider and the protector, and we forget what maybe we have right next to us. And I want to say this, all those are excuses, and I don't believe there's anything you can do that gives another person permission to cheat on you. Even if you cheated on them, that doesn't give them permission. Like I remember my ex-wife, when it all came out, she's like, well, I guess you're gonna go have an affair now. You can do that if that's what you need. And I looked at her, I was like, hell no, you would love for me to do that, because then it's going to be about me and my affair. I was like, no way, that's not happening. Right. And also, I wasn't wired that way. So yeah.
Yeah. So there's often different reasons for men and women. And does it impact men and women differently when they get betrayed, when they get cheated on? Because here's a quote from your media kit. Um, it says, "This type of trauma deeply affects a man's sense of self, trust, and emotional well-being. It is characterized by intense feelings of anger, betrayal, sadness, and confusion, often leading to a crisis of identity and self-worth." So how's that different than what women experience?
I'm going to say this in a nice way. First, I'm going to say, I don't know. And part of me also doesn't really care, because I'm interested in helping men navigate betrayal and getting over their shame and being a resource to let them know they're not alone, and all those things, and the pain, and the being less than, right, and not having, like you said from my quote, like not having resources. I mean, I have more men that find me and they're just like, thank God, like I thought I was crazy. And like when I do my men's betrayal groups, it's to watch guys soften and realize they're not alone in this, right? And the things that they were experiencing and the intrusive thoughts and the fear and the sadness, it's all good. It's all safe. It's all part of the healing process. Actually, Robert, I'll tell you another really interesting thing since, I've been diving into this just this year. I don't have a full year under my belt with the book and everything. But one of the patterns I'm finding that I find just staggering and it really concerns me is probably the majority of the men that come that I work with and do my betrayal groups, their betrayals happen 10, 15. I actually had a man 40 years ago,
Hmm.
and because they didn't do the work, because I think part of that, masculine macho is I'm just going to put my head down, I'm going to pretend as if I'm going to forget, I'm going to forget this, I'm going to forgive her, she's going to love me, right? I can't let anyone know, and they never did their work. And then let's just say, right, they become empty nesters or something else happens or a parent passes away, there's some sort of life transition. These men suddenly it doesn't, this, right? Trauma doesn't go away unless you do the work, unless you heal it, unless if you hide, repress, and deny it, it will trip you up. And so I'm seeing so much of that now, and it breaks my heart, and it makes me even more so want to get guys, man, don't just brush this under the rug. Like this is important work, and you're not going to like the work at first, but I can tell you, like I know my journey, and I see with the men I'm working with, man, they are just blossoming. They're becoming just strong, heart-centered, balanced men, and they're waking their asses up, and they're learning. Like I like you probably like you like Native American stuff, but like I love like archetypes and quadrants, right? And I want men. How can you be your best lover, your best warrior, right? Your best sovereign king, right? All these kind of like how do you find all those parts and balance it? And I think doing this work when you get shook and woken up from something like this gives you that chance to become the man that you could be, but also most of us didn't have dads that modeled anything like that, you know?
I'm listening to you and kind of rethinking back to the days, when I got cheated on.
Yeah.
And you know, I've done, a chunk of my own personal recovery work in 12-step groups. And one of the things I always love, and you especially hear this with the alcoholics, but you hear it in other 12-step groups where they'll say, like, I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic. I'm a grateful recovering sex addict. And you think, grateful? Why would you be grateful? I mean, you destroyed your life, you destroyed your relationships, you lost hundreds of thousands of dollars, whatever. And the gratitude is the way that it was the big stick that woke us up. And I really see what you're talking about when men, because I've seen it for years. I've been leading groups for men for 35 years. And when men get into a group of other guys, get real, get vulnerable, share their pain, share their losses, and get accepted and held and supported, it does wake us up. It does really, you
Yeah.
know, it's a gift. And it may not seem like that at first, and it didn't to me, but kind of going back where I asked you the question of how these characteristics of how it affects men, how's that different than how it affects women? And I'm sure there's differences. I'm sure there's
Sure.
similarities.
And it's
Where
sure.
where I would venture a guess just from knowing my work is that in general, women have their support systems. When they deal with trauma, everybody knows about it, right?
Yep.
And that's a good thing. They have those connections. We men, when we have trauma, when we have a loss, when we have a setback, we keep it in. We
We
just
isolate.
ruminate on it.
Yeah.
We
That's a
isolate
big
on it.
difference. Yeah.
And I'm thinking back to when my second wife cheated on me. And without going into detail, it was traumatic for a number of reasons. One, because I cheated on her, and that's what got me into therapy. She treated me like shit for at least 5 years, just truly, truly made my life miserable. We got into therapy, did a lot of work. And then she cheated on our like 10th anniversary, ninth or
Well,
10th anniversary. She was in Europe and at a friend's wedding. And on our anniversary, and later, when some of the details came out, she goes, I said, that was our anniversary. She says, well, maybe it meant more to you than it did to me. I thought, ouch, ouch.
Wow.
And she made another comment. She goes, I'm not going to let you and Ann was our therapist, I'm not going to let you and Ann punish me and treat me bad like I did to you for 5 years. And I go, okay, how about we just start with you just fucking tell me what really happened? And she told me so many different stories that none of them lined up. And then
Yeah.
finally, finally when I left 3 years later, my son and stepson had just started, the first week of high school when this happened, and it wasn't a good time to leave. And
Yeah.
later she just started telling people she was raped. And I'm going, well, that's not anywhere close to the truth. But
Wow.
anyway, that's how the
Yeah,
but we'll take her out of the picture for now because we don't.
yeah,
But
but
my part of this was I was devastated. I don't think I've ever been as devastated by anything in my life because number one, I didn't expect it. After she'd put me through years of hell because of my infidelity, and then she cheats and then treats it cavalierly and doesn't ever even tell me the whole truth of what happens. I remember I'd go to baseball games, I'd go to the mall, I would just kind of wander like I was in a giant echo chamber, just alone
um,
and isolated. And I'm thinking back that maybe the only person I told or talked to was when I went to my doctor to get on antidepressants because I was just such a fucked up mess. I don't think I can't recall anybody else. Again, we'd worked with a therapist, and I think we did go back and start working with that therapist again. But still, it never got really dealt with. And it wasn't until
yeah,
3 years later when I left the marriage, I thought, I think I'll go off antidepressants now. I don't think I need them anymore.
you didn't
I,
need them. Yeah,
I,
I did antidepressants. I gained a shit ton of weight. I got like 220 pounds and a 36-inch waist, and I was miserable. I was really like I would say my entire lack of self was destroyed. Like I find betrayal kills your self-worth, your self-esteem, and your self-love. And like you were alluding to, it's like I shared, right? I didn't tell my brother and my best friend for all those years. Men isolate. And that's what I love about the groups I do is these guys realize they're not alone. But I think isolating is the most dangerous thing we can do as men, not only in betrayal, but just in life in general, right? Um, because yeah, and because I think when you do that too, that ego wound just gets bigger and bigger and lets you know how crappy you are, even though you aren't, just lies to you. Kind of, it's like I like to call it, it's kind of like that. It's an inner predator that kind of feeds on it and he keeps getting bigger and bigger and he reinforces all those negative messages. And if you don't have a brotherhood, if you don't have a therapist or a counselor or a group that can just see you and support you, I think this is a hard thing to step out of. It
yeah,
lingers.
I think these guys have heard enough from me. No matter what, we do better when we have good men in our life. We're we're
100
we're meant to be in
100%.
tribe. We're meant to have community. Don't do it alone. But so many of us, oh, I'll deal with it myself. No matter what we're talking
Yeah.
about. Could be addiction, could be overweight, could be depression, could be betrayal, could be work issues, money issues, family issues. We go it alone and we don't have to. We get through this stuff so much better when we go and let other people be there for us. Let them give a shit
Mhm.
about us.